When Howard Carter cracked open the tomb of Tutankhamun in 1922, he found over 30 jars of wine sitting right there among the gold and the linen and the canopic jars. For 100 years, we basically shrugged and said, yeah, refreshments for the afterlife. A royal vintage for a dead teenage king, sure, makes sense. But in 2025, chemical residue analysis from the Yale Ancient Pharmacology program completely upended that assumption. Tutankhamun wasn't just drinking wine. He was drinking something that was engineered deliberately, carefully, to blur the line between this world and whatever came next. This is the story of Shepeh Wine, and honestly, it's one of the stranger rabbit holes I've fallen down in a long time. So here's where it gets interesting. Using liquid chromatography, scientists started identifying chemical markers in these jars that have no business being in a standard wine. What they found was Blue Lotus nymphaea caerulea and Papaver somniferum, which is the opium poppy. Now, the blue lotus shows up everywhere in Egyptian art. It's on tomb walls and jewelry. It's basically the floral motif of ancient Egypt. And for a long time, we read it purely as symbolism, rebirth, the sun, the afterlife. But chemically, it's a sedative. Dissolve it in alcohol, and you get a mild but real psychoactive effect. Stack that on top of opium poppy, and what you've got isn't really a wine anymore. It's closer to a medicinal tincture. The researchers started calling it the Pharaoh's Blend, and the implication is pretty significant. Wine in the royal court wasn't just something you drank at dinner. It was a tool for managing pain, for inducing ritual states, for doing things that, frankly, we'd need a prescription for today. Here's something I didn't know before I started digging into this. The Egyptians were meticulous record keepers when it came to wine, like obsessively so. They labeled the vineyard, the vintage year, sometimes even the name of the head vintner. It's basically the ancient world's version of a wine label, and it's remarkably detailed. But the jars marked Shepeh are the ones that stand out. Most wine in Egypt was called that was your everyday table wine, the stuff that regular people drank. Shepeh was something else. It was the elite, fortified version, reserved for the royal household and religious ceremony. And when you factor in what we know about Tutankhamun's physical condition, and this guy had a rough time, we're talking a clubfoot, scoliosis, multiple bouts of malaria, bone disease. It starts to paint a pretty specific picture. This wine wasn't a luxury, it was medication. It was the most sophisticated pain management system the Bronze Age had to offer, and the king was almost certainly dependent on it. And I think about what this would have actually been like to drink, and it's genuinely hard to picture. If you handed this to someone today and told them it was wine, they'd look at you sideways. It was thick, almost syrupy, heavily resonated with terebinth, which was used to prevent spoilage, so you'd get this sharp, resinous edge underneath everything. Earthy, floral, bitter, nothing like what we'd recognize as wine. But in the context of the royal court, this stuff was called the blood of the gods. And that phrase isn't just poetic, it's almost a clinical description of what it did. For a boy king who was in chronic pain, who had to be carried on a litter, who had to project divine authority every single day of his life, this drink was what made that possible. It was the substance that held the performance together. What Tutankhamun's tomb really is, when you look at it through this lens, is a biological time capsule. Not just golden ceremony, actual physical evidence of how a civilization understood the human body and tried to manage it. The line between chef and chemist, between priest and pharmacist, that line didn't exist. They were doing all of it at once, and they were doing it with a level of sophistication that we're only now starting to properly measure. That's what gets me about this stuff every time. We keep assuming the ancient world was primitive, and then the science comes back and tells us we need to recalibrate. Anyway, this is part of an ongoing series I'm calling Alchemy and Afterlife, where we're looking at the places where ancient food, medicine, and ritual all collide. Next week, we're going to Rome, and we're talking about lead, specifically the way Romans used a lead-based sugar syrup in basically everything they ate and drank, and what that might have done to an entire civilization. If that sounds like your kind of thing, subscribe to the Food Archaeologist. I'll see you there.